nearly the last 60 years, the Chevrolet Corvette has held the title as America's sports car, the kind of car for blue-collar Americans. Now, of course, over the years, the Corvette has been through several generations. Chevrolet has obviously been forced to make the Corvette more advanced and much more powerful. Now, unfortunately for the last generation C7, they were pretty much hitting a brick wall in terms of how much more horsepower they could add, which is why I'm standing by the all-new for 2020 C8 Corvette. It marks a lot of firsts for the Corvette in its nearly 60-year history, and this is the first ever Corvette that we're getting that's actually a mid-engine design. That's right, Chevrolet has finally pulled the trigger and developed a mid-engine car, and really this is the car that broke the internet last year because of all the hype it created. And I'm probably the last YouTuber online to actually review this thing, but as you can see, Chevrolet has sent me a 2LT coupe with the Z51 package. So the big question I want to answer, with its sleek new design, mid-engine layout, and nearly 500 horsepower, is the 2020 C8 Corvette the bargain supercar of the decade? That's what we're here to find out. So you probably can't see it too much in the video, but I am super excited to finally get my hands on the C8 Corvette. I've been waiting nearly a year to actually show you guys a full review on this thing. And now that I have it in my possession, I have to say this thing, for me, looks-wise, already lives up to the hype, because the design of this thing, just look at it. It looks a lot like a McLaren, and that's really what Chevrolet was going, because now that it's a mid-engine car, they were able to really shorten the front overhang, shorten the front end completely, to give the Corvette an all-new look. And it's exactly what this car needed to bring it, of course, into the 21st century. Now, as you can see, this one here that I'm showing you is the coupe model. There's also an available convertible, which is also just hitting dealer lots as we speak. The coupe model is probably the one that sells the most of. I would go for the convertible because it's now a power hardtop, but I'll save that for a different review. As you can see, the design of this thing, how could you not talk about it? I could sit out here or stand out here in this heat and stare at it for hours because it's just such a gorgeous looking car. In fact, it's definitely the most aggressive Corvette that I've ever seen. You can see the new headlights probably take some getting used to if you guys aren't used to this new design language. They're very slim and very pointy, but as you can see, you get full LED headlights. You have an LED daytime running light, LED turn signals, LED low and high beams. No fog lights, obviously. Instead, there's room here for these functional air intakes. The front splitter overall is just very aggressive. I love the carbon flash black accents with this Elkhart blue exterior color. This one here is the 2LT with the Z51 package, so it's got the performance package that most people should probably get in their Corvette. And really, when you stare at it from the front fascia, you can really see just how much lower this car is. In fact, Chevrolet made it also about 2.5 inches wider overall, which really gives it a much more supercar-like stance to it. And even though it's about 2.5 inches wider, it doesn't look that much wider versus the C7 when you just look at it in the flesh. Now, of course, looking at it from the side profile here, you can really see just how much longer this new Vette is. In fact, it's about 5.5 inches longer overall than the C7 at 182 inches long. Its wheelbase has been stretched by about 0.6 inches at around 106 inches long. Now, the one thing I want to talk about with this car, I don't really like the wheels on my particular tester. These are the optional $1,500 Trident 5-spoke wheels. These wheels, to me, I just think they kind of make the car look a little bit older. Chevrolet also has a different 5-spoke design with the wheel, but overall, I think that the wheel designs on the Corvette probably are my least favorite aspect. So my recommendation, look at a nice set of aftermarket wheels if you guys are considering buying this thing. Now, obviously with the coupe, you've got a removable top here, which I'll talk about in just a moment. And of course, because this is now mid-engine, you've got these functional air intakes over here because the engine now is back here. It's got to be able to breathe and allow air to cool the engine as well. So these vents that you're seeing all over the car are functional. These are functional vents right here. You can also see the engine back here, which we'll open that up and show you guys that in just a moment. But at the back, you can really see that this is still a Corvette. So at the front, it kind of looks like a McLaren for me. At the back, you can really see the Corvette, family resemblance here. You've got Corvette spelled along the back. You've got that Stingray badge there on the actual trunk lid. And these taillights are very interesting looking. I mean, some of you traditionalist purists out there are probably missing the oval taillights of the Vettes, but that kind of went away for the C7. And then back here, you can see these air intake vents on the rear bumper valance are actually functional. Everything in here is actually functional. The wing is included with the Z51 package, which Chevrolet says adds downforce, but does reduce the top speed slightly. And of course, with Corvettes, they used to have like a center-mounted quad outlet exhaust. As you can see, they've completely redesigned that on the C8 with these outboard quad outlet exhausts, which are shaped rectangularly. The sound of a Corvette's always been what's been their deciding distinctive factor. So let's fire this up and hear how it sounds real quick. All right, so this thing's got a 6.2 liter V8 and the performance exhaust system. I want to hear how the new Vette sounds. Wow. Okay, she sounds good. Wow, that hurt my ears. See, this one doesn't have a damn limiter on it.
Nope. I knew it would.
So obviously this thing sounds really mean, and it should, because the Z51 Performance package adds that performance exhaust system. Now, because the new Corvette is now mid-engine, Chevrolet was able to give us a little front trunk underneath here. And if you want to open this up, there's actually a little button here under the driver's side headlight. If you push this pad, it actually opens up the front trunk, which if you open this up, it actually reveals a pretty deep space. I actually don't have numbers on this, but I was able to fit my very large camera backpack in this thing and close the front. It's good that this is very deep because the rear trunk is actually not that deep. It's a lot wider in terms of space, but it's a lot more shallow. Now, getting back over here to the rear trunk, there's also a nice little pad here you can push that opens up the rear trunk. This also has a nice soft close lid, so you don't have to slam it, which is nice. But when you want to open this up, you can see Chevrolet says you get around 12.5 cubic feet of space back here. Now, this space is the perfect place to put the roof of this car, which when you do put the roof in here, let me take that off for you guys and show you guys what that's like. This panel here comes off completely, and to do that, you get back in here, you open up these two latches over the sun visors, and then you push this little back latch up, and that essentially lifts the roof panel up, or loosens it, and then you can essentially, they say you can do this one-handed, or one person can do this. It is a rather big roof panel, so you gotta be careful, obviously, because you don't want to scratch this. Now, you put this in backside down first into the trunk area, and just kind of lay it down, and there are these little areas here in the trunk that'll help to secure the roof. So you just kind of lay it in there, and then just push it down, and that secures the roof. And as you can see, once it's in here, it actually stays secure. It does take up most of the space back here, which obviously you're gonna be using the front trunk if you actually have to carry stuff and wanna take the roof off. All right, so obviously the exterior of the Vette is what's really going to turn a lot of heads, but you're gonna be spending a lot of time in the interior. So let me finally get inside the Vette and show you guys a complete overview, because this is an all new car. The interior is all new. Now, just like the C7 Vette, to get into the vehicle, there are no actual exposed door handles. Instead, you kind of have to feel right here underneath this air scoop right here, and there's a little soft pad. You push that pad and the door kind of opens up. It's electromechanical. There is a fail-safe feature in case the power decides to go out. And looking at the interior of my particular tester, you can see it's got the black interior with the cool gray stitching. So it's got the contrast stitching. And then my tester also has the competition GT2 seats, which are additional, I think, $1,600 extra. You can see it includes the carbon fiber over here. It's got the perforated leather. These are heated and cooled. They adjust in like 14 different ways. I also have the optional $500 red seat belts. You can also change the color to blue or gray if you'd like, or you can get the standard black seat belts. You can see the rest of this interior at a glance. Really, Chevrolet stepped it up here. I mean, the C7 had a pretty nice interior, but this one just takes it to a whole new level. Now, once you're inside the new C8 Corvette, you're gonna notice immediately just how far forward Chevrolet has moved the actual passenger compartment. Because remember, the engine is now behind me, so Chevrolet says they had to move the passenger compartment about 16.5 inches forward, which gives this thing a completely different look and feel when you're behind the wheel. I wanna say that the interior actually feels a little bit smaller than the last C7 I drove, which isn't a bad thing. It kind of envelops you. This is a very driver-focused car, and you really feel that as soon as you get inside this vehicle. Now, first thing I want to do is I want to shut the door and see how that door slam sounds. It has a relatively solid sounding thunk, considering this is a pillarless, frameless style door, but the door itself is big and heavy, and this interior, as you can see, oh my gosh. I mean, yes, the C7 had a pretty nice interior, I will admit that, but the problem with the C7 is it kind of smelt cheap on the inside. It smelled like plastic. This smells like expensive, like high quality materials. You can see there's real stitching everywhere. There's genuine stitching on the dash with real leather. This isn't even the LT3 package, the 3LT package. This is the LT2 package, but you can see it's got stitching everywhere on the door panels, metal speaker covers there for the Bose 14 speaker sound system, real metal trim. This is just a really impressive cabin. Now, when you want to start up the Corvette, let me first show you guys the key fob for this vehicle, which the key itself is actually a new key. You can see it also does include remote start. You can see it's a unique key to the Corvette, which is nice, although I imagine Chevy will probably start using this key on other models. And it definitely still sounds like a Corvette when you first start this thing up. It defaults to its touring setting, which technically has the baffles closed because my tester has the Z51 performance package. Kick over into sport here for the dynamic mode selector, or that's the track mode actually there. You can see it gives you its own specific track gauges. It's still a little bit laggy for my taste. There's the touring mode. Go kick it back over to sport. You can see, let's hear it really quick. Oh my. I mean, I'm actually really surprised for a pushrod engine. This V8 revs pretty quickly. I'm just really sad about the very low 6,500 or 6,300 RPM Redline. Trust me, you're gonna want more revs, but we'll talk about that when we go out into the driving scene. Now, another thing you wanna notice immediately, let me kick the exhaust back into a quieter mode. The steering wheel on this car, very, very unique looking for sure. This is the first time I'm seeing a flat bottom on the top and on the bottom, or two flat spots in the wheel. I actually like the way the wheel looks. It's a two-spoke design, which is nice because I can rest my hand down here. You can see a lot of buttons over here on the steering wheel. You've got heated steering wheel. You can control the screen over there. Through this button, you have your volume control, tuning or switching between your favorites. The Z button here is kind of Chevrolet's equivalent to a BMW M1 and M2 button. You push that button over here, you have to be in sport mode. You can see it changes it over to sport mode, and you can custom tailor the drive mode selector, such as the engine response, the powertrain response, the brake feel, all that stuff, which you can go into the Chevrolet MyLink settings and whatnot in the screen over here. So that's all very nice. The door panels, as you can see, it's got very soft leather, real metal trim for the speakers, real metal trim over here. The window controls, even the window switches feel very high quality. This is a nicer interior than most of the modern Cadillacs that I've seen. You can see there's two-person memory on the driver's side and on the passenger side. I wasn't expecting that. To open the door, you can see there's a button right here that electronically opens up the door, or if the power goes out, there's also a manual one right here where you can open that in case the power goes out. You can see to open up the front and the rear trunk, there are two electronic buttons over here. And then you can see your parking brake goes over here, and then you can control the heads-up display, which, by the way, the heads-up display is really good. I mean, I can see why Chevrolet made this a flat top on the steering wheel, because that does not obstruct my view whatsoever, and I can see forward very easily. But keep in mind, that's going to vary based on your height. I'm only 5'7". The steering wheel itself, you can see, is tilt and telescoping, which is very nice. It's powered tilt and telescoping as well. It has these very nicely trimmed metal paddle shifters. I love the way the steering wheel looks. The one thing I'm noticing the Corvette is missing is adaptive cruise control. It looks like you can't get adaptive cruise control in this car, at least for now. Chevrolet may fix that later on. Let's come over here to the center stack because there's a lot to talk about here. I'm going to come back to the screen here, but look at this huge sea of buttons. It's like a horizontal layout of buttons that's kind of slanted over toward the driver a little bit. You can see there's a little bit of a small display here for your temperature. Same thing down here. This is dual zone display, but Chevrolet kind of puts it in a big row of buttons, which I didn't like it at first when I first saw this at the auto show. But I have to say, the top portion here is basically dedicated to the driver. So there's the driver's temperature, there's the driver's cooled and heated seats, which is nice. There's a sync and automatic button over there. And then as you go down here, you can see there are your climate control buttons for like your fan speed, your actual off button for the climate control, front and rear defogger, recirc button. And then down here, you can see your passenger controls here for the passenger side heated and cooled seats, and then the actual temperature. I didn't like this at first, but I think this is a really cool design. So I think it works for the overall look of the Corvette's interior. You can see it now got a push button transmission selector in this car, which this controls the 8-speed dual clutch. Now keep in mind, you cannot get a manual, of course, in the C8 because the entire transmission tunnel is part of the backbone of this vehicle. It's why it's so stiff, which is why they had to go with a dual clutch for structural integrity and of course for the performance aspect. So now you get this push button transmission selector, which is technically, it's a push button for drive. You pull it up to go into reverse, kick it into, or push it for N, pull it up to go to drive, and then there's a manual mode button here. When you go into reverse, you can see very nice backup camera. Chevrolet offers several different views. You can do a curb view, a top-down view to keep you from, scratching up the front of your Corvette while you're parking. My tester is missing the magno-rheological dampers and the front axle lift system. That's like another $1,500 for that. It'll actually raise the car up, the nose of the car by 1.5 inches to help clear those tight parking spots. Your stability control off switch is over here. That's how you also reach the performance traction management. You can push this button here to kind of access the cameras, which is very nice. And then there's also a home display here. Now, this is part of the dynamic mode selector here. You basically kick it over, rotate the wheel over to the right, and you can adjust between a track mode. You can see it actually changes the way the gauges look. Go back into sport if you kick it over to the left. Go into touring, which is the normal setting. You can hear the exhaust got quieter. And there's also a My mode, which is customizable. And then there's also a weather mode. And then anytime you want, in any of the modes, you can just push the Z button here and it'll automatically take me to the sport mode and it'll give me my full custom settings that I've set for the car, which is very nice. It's quick to access that. I like how Chevy puts this big silver button there on the steering wheel so you know exactly where it is. There's also a really weird little control here for the vent. I actually wasn't sure what this was. It actually feels really high quality, so I'm happy to see that. More metal trim over there. Push the home button here, you can see there's your Chevrolet infotainment system. I think this is the 3rd generation. They don't call it MyLink anymore. This is just Chevrolet Infotainment 3. You can see it does include Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. You can see the Apple CarPlay is not wireless. I have to actually plug my phone over here. There's a USB-C, a USB, there's a little bit of storage over there, your cup holders are over here. For 2021, wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto is coming, so keep that in mind. If you guys had to wait for the 21 Vet, you're getting an upgrade there as opposed to the wired Apple CarPlay that my particular tester has because it's a 2020 model. The screen itself is lovely. I love the way the screen looks. It's very modern. It could be a little larger. It's a 7-inch touchscreen, but again, this interior is not very big, so I'm not surprised why it's not, that huge of a screen. And it's also very, again, slanted to the driver. There's like a 12-inch display here, a 7-inch display over here, so that's all very nice. This is your performance data recorder, so if you guys are taking it out to the track, it basically has a way where you can control or record your lap times. This car also has like a built-in 0 to 60 timer, quarter-mile timer and whatnot. This is all very easy to use. Chevy's been doing a good job with their system. The only thing I don't like is how this kind of lags when I'm switching between the drive modes. I wish it was a little bit quicker when you guys are trying to switch between drive modes. Chevy also added a digital rear view camera, which is nice because the view out of the back, as you can see, isn't the best because of that engine back there now. So this is also a really nice feature to have. You have all LED lighting in the cabin, of course, some more buttons and controls over here. My tester, of course, is the coupe model, so it has that removable top, which is held on by basically 2 latches over here at the front, and then there's another latch back here. It comes off really easily and it stores in the trunk of the vehicle, which is nice. Open up the glove compartment here. There's a button right here in the center. Push that. The glove compartment's actually a pretty decent size for a sports car, and it's damped and it's lined with felt. These seats are extremely comfortable. They hold you in place, but I also found them to be really cushy even on long ride or long trips. So I would highly recommend going for these seats. And really the cabin of the Corvette, I'm just blown away because the exterior is gorgeous, but the interior, Chevy's really outdone themselves. So the cheap interiors of the old Vets and the kind of halfway point that the C7 had, that's all gone. Chevy has now showed us that they can build a world-class supercar, sports car, when they really put their mind to it. So finally, let's talk about what's underneath this rear hatch, because obviously the engine here is the thing that everyone's going to want to look at because it's been moved to the back of the car. The Corvette is now truly a mid-engine car. Now the engine is the pretty familiar LT pushrod V8. It's actually an updated version of the motor that we found in the C7. It still displaces 6.2 liters. It still has direct injection. It's still a pushrod design, which doesn't really befit a mid-engine car, but it still sounds incredible. So we'll talk about that later on in the driving scene. Now my tester with the Z51 package, because of the performance exhaust, adds about 5 more horsepower. So we get 495 horsepower and 470 pound-feet of torque. That's up about 35 horsepower versus the previous C7 generation. And if you guys go for the one without this package, the Z51 package, it has 490 horsepower. So nearly 500 horsepower in a base model Corvette is new levels of performance for the C8. I can't imagine what the Z06 and the upcoming ZR1 are going to do. Now the big story here, of course, with the C8 is there's no more manual transmission. That lovely 7-speed in the C7, that's been discontinued, and that's because Chevrolet essentially designed this car's transmission tunnel to be the backbone of this car. Remember, it's an all-new platform. It's got an all-new coil spring, double wishbone suspension. The structure is very stiff. We'll talk about it later on in the driving scene. Instead, your only transmission is an 8-speed dual clutch transmission. It's Chevrolet's first ever dual clutch. They actually paired with Getrack to actually design the dual clutch. So it's a really, really quick shifting transmission, which we'll talk about that later on in the driving scene. All Corvettes are still only rear wheel drive. The Z51 package adds, of course, a limited slip differential. And with launch control, Chevrolet says this thing will get to 60 in under 3 seconds. Under 3 seconds for a base model Corvette, which used to be territory for the old ZR1 with over 750 horsepower. So I'm really looking forward to driving this thing. Now, in case you guys care, fuel economy for this new Corvette is rated at 15 in the city and 27 on the highway. Chevrolet says, please put premium gas. They actually recommend that you put 93 octane. So if you guys live out in California where they have 91, you should expect slightly less performance. And of course, the weight of this new Vette, it is a slightly bigger car, of course, so it does weigh a little bit more. As this one sits, it weighs just around 3,300 pounds. All right, so I'm probably one of the last YouTubers online to actually review this thing, and that's because my invitation to drive this thing at the media drive earlier this year, well, that got lost in the mail. But regardless, Chevrolet has finally sent me this car for a week, so I'm really happy to finally have this car to test. And I'm happy to say maybe it was worth the wait, because this thing, holy crap. Now, first things first, remember the Corvette is now a mid-engine car, so I feel like I'm sitting in a supercar right now. The noise that the V8 is making is pure Corvette. You know, it's a push rod, small block V8, making nearly 500 horsepower now. It doesn't rev as fast as I would expect it to for a supercar, but you know, if you're just driving a Corvette, it drives and revs pretty much how I expect. Now, Chevrolet says you'll get to 60 in under 3 seconds with this car with the Z51 package, 2.9. Come on, this thing is not responding. There we go. So to do the launch control, you have to put it into its competition setting. All I have to do now is just floor the brake and the accelerator. Ooh! Oh my God! Genuinely, that was the first time I tried the launch control in this car. My heart! Oh my God! Under 3 seconds? Oh hell yeah! Oh my God! So I had a McLaren GT last month, and some of you mistook that thing for a C8 Vette. This car is faster. It's clearly obvious why Chevrolet went to a mid-engine design. Oh my God, I'm shaking right now. That was definitely the quickest 0 to 60 that I felt all year. I have like a tingling in my hand right now. Oh my God, that was just incredible. Wow. And there was no wheel spin at all. How the hell did you do that, Chevy? This is the base engine. I cannot wait to drive the Z06 and the ZR1s coming up. Oh my God, what a amazing car. Excuse my language, but this car deserves that. Oh my God, wow. Okay, there's no manual transmission available in this car right now, but I kind of am okay with that because this Tremec 8-speed dual clutch, it's just so much better than the 8-speed automatic with the torque converter that the old one had. Incredible, just absolutely incredible. If I was gonna knock the new C8 for one thing, it would have to be the steering, because this has a completely new suspension, it has a completely new steering rack, and there is just not very much road feel coming through. The tires aren't really telling me what they're doing, how much grip they have. The steering itself is very quick and precise, but it's very artificially numb, which is disappointing because Chevrolet, GM has always done a really good job with steering. Just drive the Cadillac ATS-V, the Chevrolet Camaro, amazing steering feel. And this is definitely tailored back for comfort. And I'm not really happy with the steering because it makes me feel a little bit less confident. Now, I did read that there was some understeer in this chassis, and I have not experienced that yet because you really need to push this thing out on a track to experience that. The turn in for me is quick, but because the front end is giving me no feedback whatsoever, I'm left feeling less confident, which is annoying. But you really feel the new balance with this mid-engine chassis. You can basically put your foot down, the back end's not gonna step out. It will if you really are getting a little feisty with your right foot. But it's just amazing to me what Chevrolet has done with this car. The seats also hold you in place incredibly well. If there's another thing I was gonna knock, it's maybe the engine's not as loud as I want it to be. This is with it in sport, the loud exhaust is on, and I don't really hear the engine that much. Mostly what I'm hearing is all that wind buffeting, but again, it's because I have the top off. But feel with the sun coming in, the wind in my hair, what a freaking awesome car. Wow. The performance bargain of the century. Has this thing lived up to the hype? Yes, it has. Ooh, there was a little bit of understeer there. Tires were screeching a tad. But really, I'm just disappointed with the steering on this car. Come on, Chevy, you can do better than this. Make the steering have more feedback. I want to know what those front tires are telling me to give me more of that confidence. What a freaking awesome machine. Now, in terms of the rest of the visibility, you've got a very short nose right now, obviously, because the engine's behind me, so I can see better out of the C8. Big side mirrors. Now, I want to try just accelerating here from a stop without launch control. And you know what? The exhaust doesn't have any pops or crackles, but I'm okay with that because it has this nice little snap. It's like a crack of the whip when it shifts gears. Oh, it's very classic Corvette. It reminds me of the C7. I just wish the engine revved more. It needs to rev up to 7,500 RPM. 6,500 is not enough revs for me in a car that feels this exotic. Oh my God, what a freaking awesome machine. The other thing that is also very impressive is the ride quality of this car. I don't even have the magno-rheological dampers, but remember, this has an entirely new double wishbone suspension with coil springs. Those horrid leaf springs from trucks are gone from the C8 and all the other generations. And this thing is a world-class supercar that rides and handles like one, minus the steering. But it makes me question, do I need the magno-rheological dampers? Because the ride in this thing is just so incredibly smooth. The structure just feels so solid. No quivers, no squeaks, no rattles. Chevrolet is showing us they're flexing their freaking muscles, and their muscles are big because this thing is world class. Woohoo! Now, of course, I used to have a Porsche Cayman GTS. I finally sold the car. And how does it compare to the new C8? Because the Cayman is the benchmark sports car. You can tell that Chevy really put the Cayman through the chopping blocks when they were trying to design this thing. I will say the Porsche is a little bit more visceral. They've probably put in a little too much refinement into the base engine, which is probably why there's a Z06 and a ZR1 coming. That should have more of that rawness. There's also rumors of an electrified model coming, with a hybrid and an electric motor at the front axle to give this thing all-wheel drive. The Vette definitely is more of a showstopper. This thing attracts attention everywhere I took it. The Porsche has better steering feel, has a slightly quicker dual clutch. But man, on a back road, I don't know. I mean, the Cayman is really good, and it's not, but I will say that this is quicker than a Cayman. It's as quick as a 911S, basically, with the PDK and all-wheel drive, or even the rear drive models. Chevy, you have seriously outdone yourself. I am just not really speechless because I'm still talking. Oh. Oh, oh yes! Oh God! The best car that I've driven so far this year, yes. Abso-frickin-lutely. Chevy, I need to go to my local Chevy dealership because I want one of these things. I want one of these things. Woo! Now, in terms of fuel economy, who cares, right? No, in all honesty, I've been getting around 17 mpg in mostly city driving. On the highway, I actually got this thing up to a little over 30 mpg, which is impressive for a car like this. Credit that cylinder deactivation, credit the dual clutch, whatnot. But you know what? We gotta try the launch control one more time just because we can. So let's try it one more time. We're gonna come to a stop here. We're gonna put the stability control back into its traction management system. There we go. Now floor the brake and accelerator. Oh! Ah! Woo-hoo! Oh my God! I could never get tired of that. The only thing I want to criticize GM for is why is the performance traction management so annoying to engage? I had to push it several times because if you don't get the sequence just perfectly, it doesn't want to go into performance traction management. What a freaking awesome car. Oh, I'm gonna buy one. I really want to buy one. Damn it. Even the motorcyclists out on the road give you a thumbs up and honk at you in this thing. God, if you're looking to make friends or just get attention everywhere, buy yourself a freaking C8 Vette. I get more attention to this thing than I did in the $260,000 McLaren GT. Wow. So as you guys know, in my line of work, I drive a lot of fast cars, a lot of expensive cars, a lot of exclusive cars. So I don't take this lightly when I say that the Corvette, the 2020 model, is the quickest accelerating car that I've driven in 2020. 0 to 60 in under 3 seconds. The car's computer actually said 2.8. Really is just mind-blowing. And the fact that this is the base model Corvette really blows my mind because it gets me excited, of course, for the upcoming Z06, which I hear will have a smaller double overhead cam V8, and of course the ZR1, which should have a supercharged version of this motor. And really, what Chevrolet has done here is completely redefine the Corvette. The old model, of course, has a stigma for attracting baby boomers and just old people in general. And this new one is going to be attracting a completely new audience. I mean, sure, you're still going to attract the typical Corvette buyer, which is probably over 60 at this point, but really this is going to attract a lot of younger buyers because of its mid-engine design, its enticing price tag, its sleek looks, its incredible acceleration, its good handling. Although I will say, as you guys saw during the driving scene, I'm not in love with the steering feel and I'm not in love with the slight understeer I was feeling with this car. So really, I believe Chevrolet is going to address that, of course, for the upcoming higher performance versions of this car. But really, as the performance bargain, as the mid-engine supercar bargain of 2020, the Corvette definitely is going to hold that title because remember, if you guys want to buy one of these things, it starts at under $60,000, $59,995, and that's also for a 2021 model. The 21 model is just now going on sale, and Chevrolet didn't increase the price. Now, of course, compared to the C7, this car is about $3,000 more expensive, which I think it's worth every penny. Now, keep in mind, my tester is the 2LT model, which includes the upgraded infotainment system, the upgraded sound, the upgraded heated and cooled seats. This car starts at around $67,000, and with options, my tester has the color, the wheels, and those GT2 competition seats. Stickers for a little over $75,000. $75,000 for a car that looks like a McLaren, that turns heads like a McLaren, that feels like a supercar, aside from the fact that the engine still has that, Corvette harshness, although this new one is still very refined. And really, it makes the car such a bargain. It's going to redefine your expectations of a supercar because, for example, I had a McLaren GT last month that was $260,000, and to be honest, I'm actually more excited to drive something like this. So Chevy, you've done a really amazing job at just redefining my expectations, everyone's expectations on what the Corvette can be and really how much a mid-engine supercar should cost. So if you guys are looking to buy a sports car, a supercar, the 2020 Corvette should definitely be at the top of your list. Just know you're going to be probably paying a markup on this car. I've seen the Chevy dealers around my area charge as much as $20,000 over stickers. So hopefully GM gets their act together and gets production of this thing up for the coming years. Well, with all that said, I hope you guys have enjoyed my full overview on the 2020 Chevrolet C8 Corvette. If you're also looking to see the latest cars I'm testing, be sure to follow me on Instagram at redline_reviews. Like us on Facebook, and as always, guys, please keep subscribing to the Redline Reviews YouTube channel for all the latest reviews. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you all in the next video.